We're in the. Let's start from the third line here. We have to make an effort and go deeply into this. To find the quality which unites love of oneself and being directed towards others. Since we know that Hashem wants both of us from us, He wants us to both love ourselves and to be directed at others as well. Uskulahu, and this is a brilliant chiddush of Reb Shimon, which he started last week. Uskulahu zuhi, and this quality is sheis barvis amis etzel adam. It has to be clarified and verified by a person. Echusa shani shlo, the quality of his ani. Ki v'zeyim da malas kol adam v'madragaso. With this, you measure the level of person, each person according to his madrega. Ha'isha gasva shafal, a person who's low and coarse, kol ani shlo mitzumtzum rak b'chomra v'gufo. His entire sense of self is limited to his body and to his material existence. And whatever enhances his bodily pleasure and his material benefit, that's something which he feels good about. And anything which does not, he couldn't care less or is not concerned with. Above this is is somebody whose sense of self includes not just his body, but also his soul. Above this is is somebody who puts into his sense of self the people of his household and his family. So I think that this third level is the most basic level of a human being, a normal human being, is that every human being, because when they think of their sense of self, it's not just their own sense of self, but the sense of the self includes children, parents, close relatives. All those are included in my sense of self. When I say I'm looking out for number one doesn't just mean me. It means me and all those people I consider to be an extension of myself, because they're all one with me. Now, I want to, something which I thought about after last week was that, there are all sorts of unfortunate ways, or at least non-helpful ways, of extending one's ani as well. So, for example, in secular society, of course not in Torah-based society, but in secular society, many people will find a sense of ani in their sports team. In other words, they identify very much with their sports team, and if their sports team does well, then they're happy. If their sports team doesn't do well, they're upset, and their sense of self is wrapped in with the sports team of which they're a fan.
You also say my, like it's my Leafs.
What?
You also say like it's mine, like it's like my team. It's like, what do you mean your team? You have nothing to do with it.
Right.
But you still say my.
Right. It's not it's not rational.
No.
Because.
Right, we won.
Yeah.
Terrible trade.
Yeah.
You sat on your couch. They won.
You won. Did I ever tell you when I stopped being a hockey fan? Did I tell you this?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. Does anybody else remember?
Stories you could tell every week.
So when I was my father was not any sports besides hockey. He was a hockey fan. So he was a very, very ardent Rangers fan. He went to the Rangers training camps in the wilds of Ontario every year. Anyway, so I was a Rangers fan. So until at some point in my high school career, I don't remember exactly what year it was, 76 or 77, there was a major trade between the Rangers and the Bruins. And Phil Esposito and Brad Park came to the Rangers, and Jean Rattel, and I forget who else. No, sorry, Phil Esposito and Bobby Orr came to the Rangers. And Jean Rattel and Brad Park went to the Bruins. I think that's what happened. No, it wasn't Bobby Orr, it was Wayne Cashman. Wayne Cashman and Phil Esposito. What? Bobby Orr stayed in the Bruins. What? Yeah, it was Wayne Cashman and Phil Esposito for John Rattel and Brad Park. So I realized that the whole thing is sheker. These people, yes, they were my heroes. Now are supposed to be my arch enemies. I say, yes, they're my arch enemies, and now supposed to be my heroes. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It makes no sense. So they just.
I agree. They should keep Canadian teams with the Canadian players.
So at that point, I figured, okay, I'm not going to. It's not worth being a fan of any sport. So So, but there are a lot of people who define their sense of ani by whatever football or baseball or hockey team happens to be the one of their city, which of course is an absurd thing. But that's not a good way of defining one's ani. But of course, it is good to define one's ani by one's sense of family and extension of oneself. But he goes, that's the trick is to take it further. He says, somebody who follows the way of Torah, hani shalo, his ani kolel includes kol am Yisrael, the entire Jewish nation. Sheb emes kol ish Yisrael rak ke'ever migufo ma'Yisraelis. Every Jewish person is just a limb of the body of the Jewish nation. Now so he says what Jews are supposed to do is work on their love of other Jews, not as separate from themselves, but as an extension of oneself. It's like building out these concentric circles of love until one includes and encompasses as many people as possible, so that one's love of self is the way a person comes to love others, because they're not others anymore. They're extension of me. They're part of myself. And I'm not sure I mentioned last week, but I think that whenever it's hard to define who's a tzaddik and what's a tzaddik, but I think that most people regard a person as a tzaddik if they have a sense of concern, a sense of responsibility, and a sense of affection for people other than themselves and people beyond their small circle of family and friends. So that's something where you have a tzaddik is somebody we know has concern, involvement, a sense of, like I said, responsibility, affection for people besides their narrow circle. Now it's interesting. There was the Ba'alei Musar have a kind of like a machlekes, whether you should start small and build up, or whether it's bad to start small and build up. So the question was specifically, is it worthwhile having a small circle of friends who are intimate friends, and then to build out from there? Or is a danger that you're just going to get stuck on those friends, the intimate ones, and you're never going to get beyond that, and you're never going to build out your sense of self. So this is there's no right answer to this. Whatever works for some people might not work for other people. But that's the question, whether starting small is the right idea or not. Now, for the idea of starting small would be also, your kahila, right? A kahila is an extension of oneself to a large extent. That's why you care what happens in shul, how the shul conducts itself, how the shul is presented in public, and so on and so forth. Because everybody feels the shul is an extension of themselves. So do you focus on your shul, and then use it as a springboard for the rest of Klal Yisrael, or do you jump immediately to Klal Yisrael? So I think, to me, it makes more sense that a person has to do this in stages.
Isn't that the machlokes that said in Chaver Tavshachin Tov in
It could be that's one of the who's pshat.
I know the Rav said it over once.
It could be that I said the pshat. I don't remember, but it's vague. There, it's not explicit. So I don't think you can bring a definite raya from there. So in any
Chasida is interesting. Chasim Chavusah is like it's a derogatory.
Right, because it's limited. Right, very good. Right.
People are saying that in essence, everyone should only really be like a chasida, but make everyone your
right. And he takes it a step further. He says, "V'od yesh b'zeh malus shel ish hasholem." There's a person who's the perfected person. Roy lashrish b'nafsho. It's appropriate for him to embed in his soul, largish, to feel shekol ha'olamos kulam hu ani shelo. That everything in the world is his ani. And he's only like a small limb of the entire creation. Now, obviously, in this sense, the sense of loving oneself, ozer lo lehovas kol am Yisrael, it helps him to love all Jewish people. That's kol habriya kula. Reb Shimon here seems to be saying a very controversial thing, which is that he's saying that a person who's a real sholem is not limited to Am Yisrael. He's concerned with the entire Bria, right? Kind of like Avram with stone. Right? Avram is concerned with stone, even though they're big Rishoyim. So real tzaddik, and I have difficulty imagining any Gadol Hador coming into along and saying today that, okay, let's go daven for the Ukrainian people. But that's really what it says here, right? You're supposed to, Isha Shalem has a concern for the entire world, for everything which goes on. That entire world is an extension of himself.
Does that include things other than humanity?
It sounds like it also can include the environment. Yes, it can. Although I don't know if Reb Shimon was thinking about that at the time, but yes, anything which HaKadosh Baruch Hu made should be an extension of myself, because I'm part of the Bria of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Hashem cares also, right? With the
yeah.
Pesach, we don't say full halal because.
Yes, right. So it should be the entire Bria. And now he says amazing statement. I love the next statement. It's incredible. He says that Datim Rumas Inyan Zeh, in my opinion, this is alluded to, but Ma'amor Shel Hillel of Hashalom. In Hillel's statement, Im Ein Ani Li Mili Ukshani Latzmi Moani. If I am not for myself, who's for me? But if I am only for myself, who am I? Hainu Sheroy L'Chol Adam Lisameitz. It's appropriate for every person to make an effort. Lead Oak Tamid, to constantly be concerned. Barat Smoke. Yes, of course a person has to look out for himself. Avol Im Zeh. But with the same time, Isameitz has to make the effort, loving Shani Latzmi Mani. If my ani is only my atzmi, what is my ani worth? If he limits his ani, b'chuk tsar, to a very narrow circle, kafi maris ayin, based on what he sees, or based on what we see, I'm not sure exactly what it means by maris ayin. Azani zemahu. What is his ani worth? It's empty. Kai nechshav, like nothing. It's a beautiful statement. Again, im ein anili, I have to be for myself. But it's me. But if my ani is only my etzem, only me, myself, and I, then my ani. What is my ani worth? Ani can't be just my body. It can't be just my body and my soul. It can be myself and my family, but it's ideally spread way beyond that. And that, says Reb Shimon, getting back to the first paragraph, which you learned a few weeks ago, that means that Kedusha is to love oneself and expand one's sense of self and direct all of one's resources to loving one's expanded ani. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking, like, if you were by yourself, like, if there was no world around you and you're by yourself, you would be the most boring thing in the universe.
Yeah, it would be boring.
You would have to.
Yeah. Yes. Then, yeah. So, but if he has a true feeling, that the totality of creation is one large person, so to speak, even if he feels he's a small limb in this great body, so that enhances him personally as well. Why is that? In a large machine, even the smallest nail, if it serves some purpose for the machine, it's very significant. Because the overall is the general thing, whatever it is built up of its details, and it's and the overall thing is only as good as each and every component it has. So this basically is Reb Shimon saying, don't think, well, okay, yeah, fine, everything, I care about everything, but I'm insignificant. What difference does it make if I care about everybody? I'm insignificant. I don't do anything, phenomenal, something wonderful, something which impacts upon thousands of people, even hundreds of people. Reb Shimon's not like that. Everybody is a nail in this machine. And every machine only works if all the parts work. There is no such thing as a part which is unnecessary in the machine which HaKadosh Baruch Hu made. If we make machines, so, okay, well, perhaps for extra parts. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't make any spare parts. Everybody has a mission, a purpose, and even though the purpose seems small to you, it's not. It's integral to the proper functioning of the machine. So Reb Shimon is also saying, you're not losing your sense of self by including it, by including others, by expanding it, because you are important to everybody. You have a significant impact in the Bria, whoever you are, whatever level you are at. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu just asks you to do what you're supposed to do. And if you do what you do with the intent of doing it as part of the cloud, so then everybody is joined together and everybody is working together, and the kedusha of every person is enhanced. And he gives him another mashal here. It's appropriate for us to analyze all of the gifts of heaven, mital shamayim shmanei oretz, from the dew of the heavens and from the fat of the earth, kulo, which are given to Am Yisrael in its totality. His chalkusam yichidim urak b'tok gizbarus. Their division into individuals is only as trustees, treasurers. In order to divide them, to share them for people who need them. So he says that this again goes back to the idea of kedusha. Everybody should take what they need in order to serve effectively in the grand scheme of things. And if you don't need it, it's not given to you for you to keep. It's given for you to give to somebody else who will be able to use it effectively. So that's why let's look at everything, even things they use for themselves, as I'm a trustee on this thing. It's not mine. It's something that was given for a purpose, to use for my mission in life, my mission of kedusha. Based on this, Yuvan skulas hatzedakah shemasheres es ba'alei. You understand the idea of tzedakah that enriches the people who are involved in it. So this idea of if you give meiser, then you will become rich. How does that work? What the Mrs. make you give meiser? Why should I make you rich? Just because you give some money? So he says that just like somebody who's in charge of the treasury of the government, a small treasury, not Fort Knox, is in charge of a small safe with a little bit of gold, right? If he does his job properly, they'll become a treasurer. They'll promote him. He'll go up the ladder to a greater treasure. It's fascinating. It says even if in other ways he's just a mediocre person, but whenever he excels, whatever he does well, he'll get promoted in that area. Okay, the thing which you focus on, there's no guarantee, of course. Many people have their promotion passed over, but there is that if you want to get promoted, the idea is make sure you demonstrate how effective you are at dealing with your job at the moment. On the contrary, if there's a shortcoming in the way in his responsibility, all the advantages that he has, other than the mission he's delegated or responsible for, not going to help him. And they're going to demote him. Now, Reb Shimon obviously was a big Talmid Chacham, a tzaddik, a goyen. He couldn't care less about money. That wasn't his issue. So he switches into something which he cares more about. The same thing is true about the treasures of heaven are given to a person. In other words, in learning, in midos, in tzorchei tzibur, in anything which you are in charge of. If you do your job well, you can get promoted, and you'll get more, a greater responsibility. If you don't do your job well, you'll be demoted, and you'll have less responsibility. If you want to be a bigger Talmid Chacham or bigger Baal Midos, make sure that you exercise the treasury which you have, your responsibility on the treasure you have effectively, and use it the right way. So imaser kra'ui kamale tafkid gizbar shel kra'ui. If he takes off ma'aser properly, meaning in this sense he fulfills the job of his trusteeship properly, litol atzno k'fi darchi Torah, to take what he needs for himself, as he said before, the things each person needs in order to function properly. Person's entitled to those things. That's part of kedusha, as long as the person uses it in according to the proper ratio and balance. And he also distributes to others based on how the Torah directs him. Then he is going to become enriched and appointed to a greater treasury, and so to higher and higher. In order that Hashem's will be fulfilled, that if you're mative with others the way you're supposed to, then you're going to be given an opportunity to be more mative. By safeguarding the treasury. And with this, a trustworthy person does the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and is doing what he's supposed to do in this world. So again, a person has to figure out how to use the resources which I've been granted, not just with money. In any koyach which a person has in this world, a person has to figure out why I've been given this koyach, why I've been given this potential. And we have this concept, this Gemara, which says that, I forget who said, one of the Tanoim, Ba'alei Battim may Rabbi Yosher Chaverai Mitamid Yosher Mikulam. I learned a lot from my Rebbeim, more from my Chaverim and from my Talmidim more than everybody else. So there are many different interpretations in that. One of them is, of course, that the Talmidim make me smarter because, they challenge me. So therefore, the Rebbeim just taught me stuff. Chaverim I talk and learning with. The Talmidim, they ask me questions. Reb Tzadok has a more mystical interpretation of this. Reb Tzadok says that if you have variated Talmidim, many different Talmidim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to give you the wherewithal to deal with each one, because you're the Rebbe. So therefore, you have more pipelines, more tzinoros, which come through you than you would otherwise have. Because if I'm just by myself, I have my own pipeline. But if I have to deal with many other people and with many backgrounds and many issues, so then I get more pipelines because I'm the conduit by which they're connecting to divine wisdom, divine Eitzah, etc., etc. But what Rav Shimon is saying is also an interpretation of Talmid Yosher Mikulam. You've been given, a person can be learning, but then you want to get more learning? Let's see what you're doing with the learning you have. So are you using that learning to teach others? Because that's what you're supposed to do. Fine, then that's great. We'll give you more. If you don't use the learning to teach others, why should you get more learning? It's a bad investment by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If he gives you more learning, you're just going to keep it to yourself. So why should he give it to you? If a person that's why we say a person has to learn, to teach. Again, it's not just Torah. Anything good. To teach midos, to teach musar, to teach machshava, to teach how to be a good person. Anything a person can model, teach somebody else in any way which is good, that also has the same principle. Some people will be zoiche, perhaps they'll have that bracha with money. Other people won't have that bracha with money. They'll have that bracha with sefer panim yafos. Other people have that bracha with simchas hachaim. Other people have the bracha with learning. Every person, the more they engage their koiches in the way they're supposed to be engaged, the greater the hashpah will come to them as well. And he's going to talk about the opposite in the next paragraph. Maseches Gemara Tainis. Maisa Noira. It's a terrible Maisa. Everybody familiar with this? Bish Kadosh Lochem Ish Gamzu. Sha'yedei Shepam Achas Lo Milei Chavasa B'mitzvah Tzedakah. He one time he didn't fulfill the mitzvah tzedakah, so based on what he felt he was supposed to do, which was way lifnei mishura sadin. The story is that he said, "Wait until I get off the horse, so I can give you." The Ani came to him and said, "Give me I need something to eat desperately," and he said, "Just a minute till I get off the horse." According to one version, and by the time he got off the horse, the guy died. So this is, therefore Nachum Ish Gamzu said, my limbs, which were arms, that shouldn't have Rachmana, so your arms should be cut off, my legs should be cut off, should be full of boils, should be blinded, a whole bunch of things which he was gozer on himself. So Gazas Moshe, because in fulfillment of tzedakah, according to his understanding that he should have done, Gazas Moshe decreed myself, that his eyes should be blinded, he's got Yadav, and his hand should be cut off. He's got the raglav, and his legs should be amputated. And his decree was fulfilled against him. I know it's a Sorim Gedolim. This is like we have by great people, great officials. If he feels he didn't fulfill his obligation, then he makes a request to resign. If I messed up, I resign. If you're Japanese, you commit harakiri. But but the idea is that you messed up, then you're supposed to resign. That's the right thing to do. This holy person did this to himself. Since he knew all of his koichos were not his, and he's only a treasure on this, if there was just a mistake in doing what he was supposed to do with his strength, with his capacities, with his mission, he decreed on all his limbs that they should quit, they should retire, should resign. Now you have to be Nachum Ish Gamzu in order to do that. Nachum Ish Gamzu knew that his avodah would not be fall short as a result of all these things happening to him. Nobody's on that madrega except for Nachum Ish Gamzu. Some people say Gamzu L'Toiv on everything. We're not in this madrega. Nobody should take any example from this. But the idea is that if a person doesn't use their koichos the way they're supposed to use them, so then they don't. Says Nachum Ish Gamzu, I don't deserve this. I have to resign my position. I haven't been effective. Okay, we'll stop here for tonight. We have a minyan.
Dramatic though?
What?
Isn't that a little dramatic?
It is a little bit dramatic. That's why I'm saying nobody should take an example from it.
No, but why even for him?
What?
Why you just say I'm saying even for him. Okay, so you just took away all the preface that you have to do good.
Nachum Ish Gamzu was on such a high madrega that we can't understand why he would do such things himself. But again, only obviously HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed with it.
Well, of course, because you said something.
Right. So
if he would have said just my arm fall off, then Hashem would have said okay, just that. But he would have kept going on and on and on.
So it takes more explanation, obviously, but it's linked to the idea of Gamzu L'Toiva. In other words, if Nachum Ish Gamzu was a person which, presumably, if he wanted to get better again, he could also make himself better again. Not necessarily take off with the amputated limbs, because that's where I have the story with when they wanted to take him out of the house. Because the house was about to fall down, he said, "No, first take everything else out of the house, and then me, because I'm keeping the house up." So he's on a different astral plane. So on that astral plane, he felt that a hairbreadth requires a tremendous kapara. I don't understand either, but obviously that was what was going on in his mind. Okay.